Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Manifesting Muslimah. I'm your host, Zara Pedersen, and today we're going to talk a little bit about what you could potentially be doing right this minute that's blocking your blessings. That is basically stopping your manifestations to come into this life, what you're basically doing to keep yourself stuck, whether you're doing it knowingly or unknowingly. This one specific thing that I'm going to be talking about today is literally probably the biggest problem for any one of us when we want to manifest as Muslims. And that is basically not letting go of our expectations. So if you've been following me for some time, whether listening to the podcast on Instagram or on TikTok, you'll have heard me talk about this before. This is not news. This is not the first time I've ever spoken about it. But today we're going to go into a bit of a deep dive around this topic because it's so important. And it is literally one of the biggest ways that we can be blocking our manifestations to come in, blocking the blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this, of course, we don't want to do. We want to be open to receiving. We want for Allah to bless us easily, and we want to receive those blessings with gratitude. But if we are very hard on not letting go of our own expectations of what the blessings could be, we're actually making it so much more difficult for us than it actually even has to be. So let's talk a little bit about this, because again, as I said, you've probably have heard me talk about this before. And what I say is, if you want to be able to receive your manifestations, you have to surrender. It is literally oh my God, I can never remember the chapters in my book, what number it is, but I think it's like number 5, the fifth step in my framework of how to use the law of attraction as a Muslim. So that is surrender the outcome, surrender it back to Allah. This is where the tawakkul comes into play, very much so. So here's the thing, when we want to manifest something, when we want something specifically, we want to set a goal. And in the goal, because now it's going to be one of those issues where it's going to sound like I'm basically talking against myself. But I'm not, trust me. When we set the goal, initially we want to be as specific as we can. There's a reason for this. This is not for Allah to know the specificity of our goals. Allah already knows what's best for us, okay? We want to set a specific goal because it gives us something to target, something to run towards, something to reach for, something for us to know when we have reached our goals, when the manifestation has arrived, when Allah has blessed us with the thing. If we have a general goal, it's so much harder for us to understand or know or appreciate when we've actually crossed that finish line. This is why we want specificity when we're setting goals, because it's easier for us to figure out whether or not we've actually attained this goal. Later on in the framework, when we're doing the work in terms of manifesting and, taking the action and all these things, the step of surrendering almost feels as if you have to contradict yourself and that I'm contradicting myself. But trust me, I'm not, because this is where, even with all the planning that you have, with all the specificity that you've put into setting the goal and understanding when you've reached the goal and all these things, you also, at the back of your mind, have to be so willing and ready to surrender it all back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is where the tawakkul comes into play. Now, tawakkul, as we know, is about having trust and faith in Allah. And it's so much bigger than just saying it that way. But that's like the easiest way that I find to explain it. But it's having so much trust and faith in Allah and understanding and reliability on Allah to know that Allah's divine timeline and plan is so much better than ours. So even though we are so good at planning for ourselves, or we'd like to think we are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the better planner. And so when we sit down and we make a very specific goal and we think we know what it's going to look like when it's arrived, we still have to be able to basically take a back seat and let the Creator create the perfect blessings for us. And that means we have to surrender the expectation of the outcome of the goal. Okay, so what does this look like specifically, and what does it mean for you? Well, basically what it means is that at any moment in time, you're surrendering back to Allah by understanding and appreciating that you're not a creator. You are not a God. You are not a co-creator of your life. You're not the one who is manifesting on your own free will and merit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very much the backbone of all of it. And without Allah's planning and allowance and mercy and blessings, none of it would happen. So it is basically you understanding your positioning as a servant to Allah, that even though you are using your free will and autonomy to make decisions in this life and choices and figure out which direction you want your life to go in, you still understand that regardless of how much planning you are doing, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want it to go that way, or he has a better plan for you, then it's not going to happen just because you said it. It'll only happen by the will of Allah. So the contradiction that can sometimes be felt here is, but then why should I make such specific plans? The specificity, as I mentioned, is not for Allah, it is for you, and it is only a tool for which you're measuring, so you understand what direction to start going in. During the whole journey of manifestation, you want to have an element of tawakkul and surrender constantly, just as you constantly want to have an element of gratitude, even though you might not have the thing that you want, or a fraction of the thing that you want. You want more money, but you feel broke at the moment. You still have to be grateful that maybe you have a house, or you can still feed your children or yourself, or that you have a family that can take you in if you don't have a home for yourself. Whatever it might be, there's always something to be grateful for, right? So even at that point, you still have the element of gratitude, and it's the same thing with the surrendering. At any moment, you have to be so willing to accommodate Allah's will above your own. That is what it comes down to. So when you make a decision and you start taking action and you say, well, this was the specificity of my goals. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to do that for 3 months. And during those 3 months, if you feel that you're being directed away from it, that you're getting the signs or signals from Allah that's basically saying this is not the direction, and you're basically feeling more swayed intuitively to go in a different direction, don't fight it. Don't fight it. Unless, of course, it's coming from fear and hesitation. But if it's fueled with love and it's fueled with trust and peace and tawakkul, then that's probably a sign from Allah that says, I'm trying to guide you. Good thing you've taken the correct step first off. You're taking the action. But I just need you to zhuzh it a little bit, go a slightly different direction, and then you'll be more aligned with what I have in store for you. And while that might look different to what you have in store for yourself, or at least at the beginning, it'll be a much greater outcome for you by allowing this zhuzhing to happen, by allowing yourself to be guided by the will of Allah, by the intuition, by the angels, if they have been granted that by Allah, to come in and literally guide you and protect you from harm's way. So constantly, and you'll have heard me speak about this, especially on this podcast in previous episodes, that you want to constantly take stock. This is why. This right here is why, because at every moment you're taking an action and you're making a new decision and you're making a new choice for yourself and you're welcoming change. Every single time you want to check in with your niyyah, your intention, with the action, with the steps, everything that you're taking. What's my intention with this? Is it bringing me closer to Allah or further away from Allah? That's the first thing. The second thing is it actually bringing me closer to the thing that I'm wanting? And what is the thing that I'm wanting? Because our goals change, especially the moment we start taking action on them. So if you have a goal and you start taking action and you realize, I actually don't like making YouTube videos so much, but I do like making podcasts, or it's easier for me to make podcasts. There's so much more ease and flow and simplicity in it. But making a video, I'm not really good at editing. I feel uncomfortable in front of camera. Even though I thought I was going to have a massive YouTube channel, maybe the sign coming in is that I should focus on the podcast. So while we are chasing the goals, the manifestation that we want, we, by checking in with ourselves, can often find that our goals change simply by taking action, because we start to understand where we have a natural flow for things. We start to understand where we have a natural talent and skills. We start to understand what we like, but the things that we do, what we don't like, what we appreciate. We learn so much more about ourselves. And in this is a lot of blessings from from Allah, of course, as well. But in that could also be the redirection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is where it is so important for us that we don't get too stubborn on the expectation of the outcome, but we are so willing to surrender it back again and say, I trust that if something is not the right thing for me, that you will kind of pull me out of myself a little bit and, help me guide myself into a different direction. And I know that a lot of us make this prayer, like, if it's not good for me, then remove it. But then at the same time, so many of us don't do that, or we feel some type of way when Allah then does do that for us. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I often hear a lot of people say, well, I always make dua. This specifically, by the way, let me interrupt myself for a second. This specifically about wanting to manifest a partner. And so you're probably sitting out there and you might feel called out if this is you. And trust me, I'm not trying to call you out, but maybe this will be your wake-up call, okay? When you're trying to manifest a partner and you say, Ya Rab, if this is, my partner, if this is my other half, if this is the one for me, please, make it easier for us. And if it's not the one, then, just help me release and whatever, remove him from me. And then this person basically isn't moving closer to you. Or maybe they're even meeting another person. Maybe they even got married. Yes, I have talked to a few of you where you're still kind of longing for a person who is now in a marriage. Okay. And listen, I get it. Emotions are hard. Feeling love and admiration for a person can be difficult to sort of just stop immediately. And especially if you feel like, oh, this person would be best for me, it can be even harder to let go. So this is like an example that I see quite a lot, not necessarily the one where the marriage, but specifically where you're asking Allah, if this is my person, then bring them closer to me. And then the kind of the opposite happens, or nothing happens at all, where the situation just doesn't change at all. And this, in my book, is definitely a sign that, like, Allah is not trying to move mountains to put the two of you together. So maybe that's your sign to, focus a little bit on yourself, or readjust your expectations of a husband. Maybe you should expect more from a husband. That person is just not the one, and you would have to compromise, and this with yourself, or change yourself, or whatever it might be. But this is where we kind of tend to get a little bit stuck. Listen, also, by the way, I'll put my hand up right now. I have been infatuated by people. I have experienced limerence. I have felt love towards a person. So I've gone through stuff. I'm only a woman, and my heart is beating too. And while there are a lot of not so nice men out there, there are also some really good ones. And it can be difficult not to fall in love sometimes with these men, or feel really strongly towards them. But that does not mean that they're your people just because they're nice people. They could be good for somebody else and horrible for you, even though you might not see it right now. But when we are asking Allah to remove this person from us, what I see quite a lot is this unwillingness to also let go. So we kind of double down a little bit, I say we, okay? I say we because I know that there are more than one of you out there. And as I said, I have been there myself, which is why I will say we instead of you, because I'm just as much talking to myself as I am to you, as always, in any one of my episodes or anything that I put out there content creation wise. Okay. We tend to double down. Oh, well, maybe Allah is just testing my patience. Well, Allah just, you become desperate. You want to see signs and things that are not signs. You start, the amount of you, and I'm so, listen, you can believe in what you want to believe in. I'm not going to tell you how you should, use your spirituality and whatever, but I've seen so many of you also delve into like fortune tellers, tarot readers and stuff like that. It's like, oh, but I saw this tarot reader and and they're saying that he does like me, and sometimes I feel it, but he texted me, well, he's still friends with me on Facebook. Like, you start being desperate with the signs. Okay, so you start making signs of some things that are not signs. And ultimately, at this point, this is where the surrender should have come in a long time ago, right? The surrender that says, if it is meant to be, Allah will make it be. But if I have to literally break down a whole mountain and build houses for whole small village in order for this person to be mine, and even then it's not guaranteed, then maybe that's not from Allah. Maybe you're trying to force a narrative that is not meant for you, and ultimately will lead you to more hurt, despair, maybe even doubt around Allah and his willingness to bless your life with good things. And as a result, it can hurt your deen. It can hurt your relationship with Allah, because you might feel like Allah is bullying you. Everybody else gets what they want. Why can't I have this one thing? All I'm asking for is this one guy. And here's the thing, if this guy wasn't for you, and if it was never meant for you, insisting upon this guy, and Allah then giving this guy to you, would probably just mean you're going to get a divorce or a very, very horrible marriage, where you're going to feel neglected, you're going to feel gaslit into, thinking this person was the right one for you. It's just not going to be the one for you. Because if it is not from Allah, it is from yourself. And only good thing will come from Allah. The bad things come from ourselves. And the stubbornness is not from Allah. That is from ourselves. So if you cannot release your expectation of the outcome of the manifestation, what it's going to look like and who it's going to be with and what time and so on, you could just be hurting yourself more. And one thing that we tend to do when we are so focused on that one specific outcome, that one person, that one job, that one house, that one pair of boots, that one whatever it is, we kind of have a tendency to put on those, I don't know what they're called. They put them on horses in traffic that sort of like go on the sides of their eyes so they can only see directly in front of them. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but I see it a lot in Morocco because they have the coochies. That sounds so rude when I say that in English, but it's coochie. It does not help when I try to say it in Moroccan either. The horse wagon taxi people, okay? Please forgive me. I try, but okay. So in order for the horses not to get spooked and distracted by traffic and, that's coming from the sides and people and little bikes and stuff like that, they put these things by the sides of their eyes so that they can only look straight ahead of themselves. And it helps the horse to focus. So it helps the horse, of course, in traffic. But you're not a horse and you're not in traffic. Well, I don't know, maybe you're listening to this in traffic right now. And if you are, definitely focus on the road ahead of you, darling, please. But we as humans, we need our peripheral vision. We need to be able to see everything around us. And we need it also spiritually. We need it intuitively. We need it, emotionally. We need to be able to open our field of vision, not just in the 3D right here in our field of vision, what I see in front of me, but also inside. And when we get too specific on the outcome and we don't want to let go of the expectation of what we want it to look like, and we don't have a genuine wanting to surrender that outcome back to Allah, then that is basically you putting on those things. What are they called? I don't know. Those things. I'm just going to call them those things. You know exactly what I'm talking about when I say those things for the horses. So that is basically you putting on those things. And all you can see is that thing straight ahead of you, but it's not for you. That's not a carrot at the end of the stick. That carrot is rotten. It's not for you. It was never meant for you. But what is happening in the meantime is that the world is still going on the side, in the peripherals, right? That you can't see because you've got these blinders on. Are they called blinders? Blinders. Oh my goodness, I think they're called blinders. I'm going to go with blinders. That sounds about right. And it just came out of nowhere. Alhamdulillah, there we go. Thank you, Ya Rab. So you've got the blinders on, so you can't see. I don't know if it's actually called blinders, but I'm going to call it that from now on. So you've got them on, and you can only see ahead of you. Meanwhile, to the right of you and to the left of you, all of these things are happening. Life is happening. And one after the other, after the third, after the fourth, opportunities will pass you by. Just continuously pass you by. It's kind of like you are standing on a treadmill and it's not moving. The treadmill is broken, but you insist on running 50k on it still, but nothing's happening. So have you ever stood on a treadmill that doesn't work and you kind of have to power it yourself and it's really hard? That's what you're doing. It's very slow. It's brutal. You don't like it. It's not enjoyable. And on the left and the right side of you, there are hundreds of treadmills that work perfectly fine and they just want you to jump on it and you'll reach your goals much faster. Sometimes that could look like another man. But because you've got your blinders on, you're not seeing this man. You might notice him. He's there. Yeah, whatever. I can hear you talking. You're annoying me. I'm not interested in you. But you're not looking at this man. You're not seeing this man. And Allah might have sent that man to you because that person is the right one for you. But because you've got your blinders on, while you might be aware that he's there, you're not seeing him. You're not, because you've chosen not to. You've locked yourself in on something else. And this is where we're basically blocking our manifestations. We're blocking the blessings from Allah. And what a horrible thing to do, because that man could be the love of your life. He could be the one that completes your deen. He could be the one that you're meant to spend eternity with in Jannah, and with your children and your entire family living in mansions and having all the good things that you want in Jannah. By the way, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to interrupt myself with a little, I'll do that after. I was going to go on a little trip around the sun with another story. So I'm going to do that afterwards if I remember. But that could be your person. And it's so difficult. It could also not be your person. It could just be the person who knows the person that is meant to be yours. And it's still not the person that you're looking at directly in front of you, right? It could be somebody completely different. And that person, it's his brother. It's his sister's, I don't know, a colleague or something. Like, I don't know. It could but the opportunity is there. Allah has sent in an option for the blessing to arrive, and you're closing yourself off to it. This is what we're doing when we're not letting go of the expectation of the outcome, when we're not fully surrendering to Allah's will. Even though we think we know better for ourselves, but I only want this guy, or I only want this job, or I only want this house. But if there's something better for you, and if that one thing that you so desperately want will come with stress, anxiety, turmoil, hardship after hardship after hardship, and potentially, as I said, the biggest thing of all and the biggest concern that you should be concerned about, you weakening your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or it destroying your deen. Because that is how much this dunya actually means. The things that we choose in this dunya, that is how much it can do. And I know that sounds extreme. You're like, no, but I'm sure I could handle it. No, we're only human. We are not gods. We are not angels. We're nothing. We are souls having a human experience, or whatever that saying goes that everybody loves saying. And we have been built with these weaknesses because this is a test. This dunya is a test. We're not meant to stay here forever, right? And so we are meant to be able to also choose wisely for ourselves. And the danger of choosing the wrong thing could lead us down a path that could ultimately destroy our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the danger. And we never know what road that could be, because for some people it is drugs and alcohol. But for other people, it could be the loss of a job, the loss of a family member, the loss of a marriage, a toxic, abusive relationship, a relationship where the other partner doesn't instill love and trust and faith for you to practice more of your religion, to submit to Allah more. There are so many ways that we can lose our deen, or our deen can be, infected by this dunya. That's the test. That's what we're here for, right? But this is, again, why it is so important for us not to get too focused on our own expectations of what the goal has to look like, because our understanding, our knowledge, our perspective is so extremely limited. We know practically nothing. And yet we think we can make the decisions for ourselves and know which is the best decisions. And sometimes we do. Sometimes we're guided in a beautiful way where we understand the science the first time around, and we're able to set aside our ego and our fear and hesitations, and we can block out the waswas, and we're on point with our salahs and our dhikr. And that's beautiful. But other times it's much harder for us. It's much more difficult. There'll be more obstacles. It'll feel unfair. It'll feel unjust. And that coming from the most just can feel so confusing. Why is Allah treating me with such injustice when He's supposed to be the most just? Sorry, I'm just getting all word confused. Why is Allah, the best of givers, not giving this one thing that I'm asking? Why is Allah the listener and answer of prayers, of the du'as, not answering my du'a? Because, my darling, Allah has something better in mind for you. Because, my darling, Allah is trying to divert you away from disaster. Because, my darling, Allah is looking after His servants. And you, as one of Allah's servants, He wants to protect you. And sometimes it's hard for us to see what that protection can look like, because sometimes that means getting away from something that we love, moving us away from something that we love, keeping the thing we love away from us. Whether that love is real or it's based on daydreams and rose-colored glasses, it doesn't matter. But in that moment, it is so important for us, even when we feel like it's so difficult for me to let go of this thing, to still surrender it to Allah and say, I trust that you're guiding me away from this, or not letting me have this, because there's a greater plan behind it. One that I can't see, and it might take me years to figure out what it looks like. It might only take me a few days. I might not know it until I've arrived in the hereafter, in the akhirah. But when I realize it, I know. And I don't even have to realize. That's trust. I just trust. I don't need to know why. Because that's how much I will have that tawakkul and faith in Allah. That I don't even need to ask, why, Ya Rab, are you doing this to me? You just say, Alhamdulillah, Allah provides and takes care of me, and He looks after me. His hand is over my head, and I feel safe even when I have to let go of something that I thought was good for me. I feel safe because Allah is guiding me away from it. That is the surrender. Stop blocking your manifestations, your blessings, the beauty and the ease and the flow that Allah wants you to have in this dunya, in the journey towards Him as His servant. Stop blocking it by getting too caught up in your own expectations. The more you get stubborn about what the outcome is going to look like, the more you're going to block your manifestations from coming. The more you are able to surrender and let go and allow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide you to the manifestation and the blessings, the easier life will be for you. The simpler it gets, the more flow you'll have, the more enjoyment, the more gratitude. Your tawakkul will grow, your deen will get stronger, your relationship with Allah will strengthen in this journey. Because you are constantly, at every step of the way in this dunya, facing towards Allah at the end of the day and say, I trust in you, not my ego, not societal standards, traditions, culture, social media, my boss, my friends, even my family. I trust in you, Allah, and that is where the blessings are going to come from, and only from there, never by your own hand. Remember, all good things come from Allah. Everything else is from ourselves. Only good things from Allah. So if you're experiencing bad things, you might have to lean much more into the surrender. Surrender. Stop resisting it. Make it easier for yourself. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy the outcome that Allah wants you to have, instead of settling for the one that you think you want and the one that you believe is the best for you, even though Allah has maybe seen the amount of flaws there is in it. And I will I'll just add one more note here before we end today's episode, and then I'll get into my little divergence that I saw the other day that I wanted to mention as well. So the last thing that I want to say is, this doesn't mean that every single one of your goals will never come the way that you want them to. Some of them will. As I said, sometimes you are so in tune and so guided, and you just know this is the exact way that it's going to come, and this is the exact way it's going to look. Alhamdulillah. But other times, usually with some of the bigger manifestations in life, we will only see a fragment of it. We'll see a split second of a 3-hour movie. I was going to say a 90-minute movie, but they're never 90 minutes long anymore. They're at least 3 hours, all of them. I don't know. Can we bring back 90-minute movies? I don't have 3 hours to watch a movie anymore. But we see 1 second of a 3-hour movie and then we think we know the whole entire plot. No. Allah will give us an idea because he wants us to try and figure out the rest by making the decisions, taking the actions, and continuously surrendering back. Okay, here's the thing that I wanted to say before, because I was talking about the whole, going to Jannah, inshallah, for all of us. May we all end there, inshallah, ameen. And having your husband with you, and I was going to say like, oh, and you're in your mansion and you have all the things, and then my brain instantly thought of this TikTok of this girl who had like a Pinterest board for what she wants in Jannah, and I love it, and I am so into this, completely into this. Like, okay, this is the garden I want in Jannah, this is the kind of house I want, and like manifesting for Jannah. I love this so much. I just thought it was such a cute idea. Of course we can't, it's a nice idea. I love it because the spiritual aspect of it is hopefully it'll make us strive better and more in this dunya, because we're like, oh my God, if I really do well, then I can have these things and but of course we don't know what Jannah is going to look like, and we can't experience it until inshallah we will get there. But I just thought it was such a good idea because again, it's like that motivation for this dunya, and I absolutely love it. I'll probably make a little TikTok about it as well because I think it's so cute. And so there's a little something for you. If you're like, oh, I want to make a dream board or a vision board or something, or just something to do with myself, to think like that'll motivate me to do better, be better this life. Mood board, vision board, your house in Jannah. The things that you want in Jannah. I just love it. I thought it was the most adorable thing. It's so cute. Anyway, that was a little detour that I was going to take, and then I stopped myself from taking it. But of course, I know that if you're anything like me, it'll be so annoying if I was like, oh no, I'll forget it. I wasn't going to say anything anyway. I'm like, what were you going to say? So there you go. That was what I was going to say. If you're like me, that little itch has now been scratched. Okay, my darling, thank you so much for listening in to this episode. I absolutely love and adore you. Thank you so much for all of your support and your reviews. I really do appreciate it. Feel free to screenshot and share with me at Manifesting Muslimah in the stories where you're listening in from, what episode you're listening to. Also, it just helps to share the podcast with potential new listeners. They might already be in your family circle, friend circle, work circles, whatever it might be. That is a great help. The more we share, the more people can hear the good word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be reminded that we have autonomy of our life, but ultimately Allah is the creator and the ultimate decider. And inshallah, we can help each other lead a more intentional life in this dunya that'll get us to heaven, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, ameen. All right, my darling, I will love you and leave you. So until next time, please don't forget to live in love.